from great questions. And great questions are born from a spark of curiosity, a challenge, and a suspicion. So we asked ourselves, what if? What if data teams could collaborate, get insights faster, trust their data, fuel insightful business decisions? The beauty of a question is they turn into an answer. We've turned our data teams can't do that into, is there anything our data team can't do?
As the demand for data accelerates, enterprises must increase the productivity of their data teams, which means doing more work faster with fewer resources. Matillion is the productivity platform for data teams. It makes data work more productive by empowering the entire data team to move, transform, and orchestrate data pipelines built for coders and non-coders alike, all in one place at unlimited scale.
You've modernized your data cloud, but do you have a modern intelligence cloud? With the familiarity of a spreadsheet, enterprise-grade security and governance, and cloud scale, Sigma empowers everyone to data confidently. Analyze, collaborate, act. Know your past, action your present, predict your future. Sigma, where business works with data.
Please welcome Snowflake co-founder and president of product, Benoit Dashville.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be here in Las Vegas with you all. And I hope you are enjoying Snowflake Summit like I do. Yesterday's keynote was amazing, right? So, since the beginning, our vision with Snowflake was to make the Snowflake Data Cloud really the best place to bring all data together, making data easily accessible and actionable to really everyone. And our journey began in 2014 when Snowflake transformed the landscape of data analytics in the cloud. And by decoupling storage and compute, Snowflake offers virtually unlimited and potentially unlimited scalability. But we didn't stop there. 4 years later, we further eliminated data silos by enabling direct collaboration within and across organizations, even when the data is located in different geographies or clouds. And now, all this innovation has come together to fully disrupt application developments. And really, this is the new frontier, making the Snowflake Data Cloud the best place to build, run, distribute, and even monetize a new breed of applications. And these applications have data at their core. They are data applications. And whether you are building a new data pipelines, training ML models, creating cutting-edge Streamlit apps, or developing full-fledged data applications, today, we are going to show you why the Snowflake Data Cloud is the unrivaled choice for building and innovating. And there are really 3 key reasons for that. First, Snowflake offers one single platform that empowers you to build high-value data products from their data layers all the way to their user interface. Second, you have access to a vibrant community that can assist you in your development journey. And third, we provide you with resources to help you monetize and really grow. Now, let's dive in the platform. And at its core lies data. And this is really critical since the value of machine learning models and data applications rely heavily on the seamless and unsiloed access to all relevant data. And our platform prioritizes these aspects in three different ways. First, it supports all data types, whether it's structured, semi-structured, or unstructured data, like any documents, images, or even videos. Second, your code can access data from multiple sources, whether they are internal or external, including value data sets located on the marketplace. And third, the Snowflake platform is compatible with various table formats, including both internal formats and open table formats like Apache Iceberg. Our platform also offers a wide range of capabilities to power your data apps. And to achieve exceptional speed in executing data flow programs, the Snowflake platform implements many cutting-edge optimizations, like, for example, vectorized processing, micro-partitioning storage, auto-clustering, and many other serverless capabilities that further accelerate your queries and your searches. And if you combine that with our ease of use and our out-of-the-box performance, Snowflake data flow processing is really extremely fast and therefore extremely cost-effective. In addition to SQL, with Snowpark data frame programming, you can now directly leverage the same data flow processing using Python, Java, or Scala. And this really enables you to expand your options for developing data flow programs while at the same time leveraging the performance and cost efficiency we have built in our data flow engine over the many years. And this makes Snowpark a formidable alternative to Spark. You really should evaluate it if you have not done so. And coupling this with our cloud services layer guarantees secure and governed access to all data with high availability and almost zero operational burden. And finally, SnowGrid, our cross-region and even cross-cloud technology layer, further empowers developers to run and operate completely at a global scale. And yesterday, we made many groundbreaking announcements that significantly expand the capability of the Snowflake Data Cloud. And in particular, we announced our private preview of Snowpark Container Services, making Snowpark so much more powerful by enabling you to deploy and run your containerized services and even applications directly all within the Snowflake Data Cloud. And we also announced various public previews like Snowpark Streaming, Dynamic Tables, Streamlit, and the native app framework. But of all these announcements we made, I am especially excited about Snowflake native apps. Because if you think about it, applications are really the ultimate way to unlock the full potential of data by making it accessible and actionable to really everyone. And I'm so excited about it that I now want to spend some time explaining how it all works. So application provider can now bundle application logic and associated data in a self-unit that we call an application package. And as application providers, you can quickly distribute and even monetize your app by just listing it on the Snowflake marketplace. And that listing is either private to your organization or really public, visible to any Snowflake customer. And once your app is published, it can then be directly installed on other consumer accounts. And once installed, the app running on the consumer account can access data from 3 different locations. First, the code of the app has direct and live read access to the provider's data, which was shared via the app package. Second, the install app can now locally also store internal states, which is hidden from the consumer account. And third, the consumer can grant the app read or write access to a subset of the data in his account. And this capability is critical for applications which are used, for example, to enrich consumer data by leveraging data or ML models which were embedded in the app package. And finally, the install app can be made to be fully interactive using Streamlit's rich visualization capabilities. And also, we are working towards making it seamless to distribute your native app to consumers all over the globe in any other Snowflake cloud region of your choice. And this is achieved by leveraging the Snowflake global and multi-cloud presence. Snowflake will transparently replicate your app package to any region where your app needs to be installed and executed. So that concludes native apps, and I hope you are as excited as I am about it. So Snowflake goes beyond just providing an amazing platform. We also recognize the importance of having a strong community that can help builders, really builders like you, solve problems and provide you with ideas that can really accelerate your development lifecycle. And with Snowflake, you have all been active across the globe in this incredible community. And you have been contributing in many ways, from local in-person events, user groups, or even online forums. And we also recognize the data superheroes, which are here with us today. Bravo. Yeah. And it's very important to acknowledge that these groups give a month of their time and effort to share their expertise and help the Snowflake developers get the best possible experience. Data superheroes, really on behalf of the community, thank you for your dedication and support. So the community is also great at making great contribution to open source developments. With Snowflake Labs, we open source internal tools, and we also contribute directly to many of the projects you use, such as Streamlit, Apache Iceberg, Apache Airflow, and Fist. And finally, there are the weekly challenges where you can develop your Snowflake skills. I want to extend a big thank you to Christopher and Mike, who created last year 52 challenges from a conversation at Summit last year. As you can see, with Snowflake, you have a strong platform and a very supportive community. And beyond this benefit, we go even further by helping you expand the reach of your work through the full power of the Snowflake ecosystem. The Powered by Snowflake program helps companies at all stages build, operate, and market their application on Snowflake. And to see some of those cutting-edge apps in action, join me this afternoon for the Startup Challenge final at the Data Hub. As you can see, yes. As you can see, We are dedicated here at Snowflake to help you continue to grow and build data applications that can potentially reach millions of users. Now, it is time to see a set of action-packed demos. And for these, please welcome Elsa Meyer on stage. Elsa, to you.
Thank you, Benoit. Now, for everyone here in the Snowflake community, you are in for a real treat. We are about to witness a story that may be familiar to many of you and your organizations. A story you will see come to life through the lens of a fictional company we call Tasty Bites. Tasty Bites runs a fleet of over 400 food trucks. And this is their fictional workspace and headquarters. They are so successful these days that they're facing 3 major challenges. Data is now being generated at much faster speeds. Their analysts and their ML teams are working in silos, and they're not having much luck getting key insights into the hands of the business. So how will they address this? Bit of a spoiler alert. Here's what the team is about to dive into. They're going to bring batch and streaming data together. They're going to bring SQL and Python together. And they're going to turn data into intuitive applications. We're about to see how Snowflake solutions, along with some friends, customers, and ingenuity, will take Tasty Bites from chaos to efficient growth. In our fictional scenario, Tasty Bites is actually holding a food truck festival right outside in the parking lot. So luckily, we have quite a few data experts here to help. We'll meet a few of them along the way, but let's first meet our core Tasty Bites team. All of them are real builders here at Snowflake. As it turns out, they're pretty good actors too. I'm Elsa, a community manager at Snowflake. But as you probably guessed, thank you. As you probably guessed, today I'll be playing the role of your narrator. I'll be showing up every so often to catch us up on where we are, and maybe even share some of those snacks back there. Here comes Felipe. Felipe is a lead developer advocate at Snowflake and an analyst in our Tasty Bites scenario. And Marie. Marie is a Snowflake senior data science specialist, and she'll be playing the role of data scientist. Let's meet our other 2 key members, familiar faces, no doubt. Snowflake's very own Dash. Dash is a lead developer advocate at Snowflake and will be playing the role of Tasty Bites' technical lead. And Amanda. Amanda is Streamlit co-founder and Snowflake product director, and she will be acting today as product manager. I'll be back in just a few minutes, but keep in mind that everything you hear and see about Snowflake is all real and available for you to try as a part of single platform. Team, take it away.
Hey, Amanda. The food truck festival is so amazing, and I ran into so many people that I really wanted to talk to.
Yeah. Don't even talk to me about it. I'm so hungry right now. I missed it because we had an emergency leadership meeting where our CEO has handed us a brand new project that we need to be ready to present on at the next board meeting in a couple weeks.
That sounds super important. What is it?
Well, you know how we've been brainstorming how we're going to empower our franchisee owners to increase their own revenue?
Of course.
Well, the data science team has actually given us a new proof of concept that potentially lets us give franchise owners data-driven pricing and promotion for their own trucks. It's a really cool idea for how we could drive more pre-truck revenue, but of course, it's just a prototype. And now the exec team wants us to have a plan ASAP for how we can roll this out to all of the trucks.
Okay.
Yeah, it's tough.
That sounds like a tough problem to solve.
The good news is I've looped you in as well. Actually,
good.
I've got a meeting right now with the data science team and our franchise operations analyst to figure out a path to production. You want to join and weigh in?
Absolutely.
All right, I just got to get a snack real quick. All right. You want anything?
Water.
All right. Guys, sorry I'm late, had to skip lunch, but good news, I brought Dash with me to make up for it. All right, Marie, I hear you've built us a cool proof of concept. Can you fill us in?
Yeah, so I've managed to build an ML model that can accurately forecast demand based on promotion of a menu item. To get that, I had to bring together purchase transaction data, historical record of promotions, and cost of goods. Using these ML-driven recommendations, we can expect a 10% lift across all of our food truck brands.
Really, 10%? Well, I mean, that would be really impactful if we could roll it out, but obviously this is just a proof of concept. So what hurdles do you see to rolling it out? And actually, let me take some notes. I'll send them out afterwards.
Well, accessing and processing data of daily transactions from our 450 food trucks was not easy, as we're talking billions of records. So I have the transaction data coming in real time, but I also had to enrich it with the more static cost of good and promotion data.
Okay, so just playing that back, we obviously need a way for batch and streaming to come together. That it, or what else?
Exactly. And automating pipelines to reproduce the transformations I've created in Python to feed to models. We don't have the resources to make this a real service.
Yes, and obviously we can't build a real service for the franchisees without first making sure that we're solving the underlying platform and data problems. Dash, anything that we've actually already got on our Q2 OKRs about this?
Well, we only use the platform today for batch-oriented workloads and to support our SQL users. The data that Murray's talking about, that's generated at a much, much, much faster rate. And for now, we have separate infra to ingest all of that.
Yeah, as an analyst, I can tell you it's been great for SQL and batch. But I would also like to be able to use the inputs and outputs that Marie's science team is working on. But because all of that work happens in a separate platform, I'll never get to build on top of that.
Got it. So we've got a silo between our batch and streaming data, and also a silo between our data science team working in Python and our analyst and operations team working in SQL. Sounds frustrating.
Yeah, to be honest, we've tried to bring all these things together, but in the past, it's never worked.
Yeah, which is why our team has its own separate infrastructure, which does mean we end up doing a lot of manual work on our own. This slows down our ability to run new experiments and then ship the successful ones into production.
Okay, so let me just outline what we would actually have to put a solution in place. So in an ideal world, we're going to have a platform where you could access and transform streaming and batch data, and you could do it in either SQL or Python.
Yes.
Okay. And then I'm assuming we're going to need some way to move work between your two teams. And on top of that, we need to figure out how to get these data products actually into the hands of our franchisees. Dash, any thoughts?
Sounds awesome. Super complicated.
Okay, well, yes, we've got the high-level vision, but obviously it sounds like this is going to be hard. But we don't have a lot of time. We need to present on something at the board meeting in 2 weeks. So let's see if we can figure out at least a path to an MVP, right, that would make this possible. At the same time, I think we're going to have to start work in thinking about how we could actually deliver more of these data products to our franchisee owners. I'm assuming that actually you probably could build a lot of data products for them, and that could be really impactful for the company. So we're going to want to figure out how we could scale that. All right, let me actually synthesize this up, and I'll send you guys the notes, and we can schedule some follow-up meetings.
Amanda, you should talk to my friend Rebecca. She leads a data science team at EDF.
Oh, yeah?
I'm going to send you an article she recently wrote, and I know they've built a lot more cool stuff using Snowflake.
Awesome. Well, I'd love the intro and to meet her, and I'll take a look at this article while I eat my lunch of mango pineapple mix.
Well, I better get to work. I'll see you guys soon.
All right.
See you guys.
See ya.
I'll bet a lot of you can relate to what's going on here. We know that Tasty Bites teams have a few challenges to solve. The data they need is coming in at different speeds. Their analyst and ML teams are working in silos. And the business teams, they need their results yesterday. We know, does this sound familiar to you guys? Anyone? Raise a hand. All right. The good news is that this team here is totally up to the challenge. So Amanda reached out to Rebecca, who leads a data science team at a company called EDF. EDF is a real Snowflake customer and a leading energy supplier out of the UK that's already overcome the kinds of challenges that Tasty Bites is facing today. Can Rebecca give our team the jumpstart they need? Let's find out.
Rebecca, it's so nice to meet you.
Hi, Amanda. Great to meet you.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to meet today.
No problem.
I was just meeting with Marie, who I think you know, and we've got a problem internally that we're trying to figure out about our platform, and she said you'd actually built something similar, so I'd love to learn more.
Sure, no problem. Where should we start?
Well, let me give you a little background on the task that we're trying to accomplish. So a key to our success at Tasty Bites is increasing sales per food truck. We think that we can do that on low demand days by actually sending out optimized pricing and promotions to each of our trucks. but we really aren't set up to deliver those insights directly to our franchisees. We're going to have to overhaul our entire data platform in order to deliver this. And I'm not sure if this is resonating at all, but I would love to understand the problem that you were trying to solve and see if there's any overlap.
Yeah, sure. Well, that definitely resonates with me. So this winter, the UK government set out to incentivise people to use less energy during peak times. This was a response both to growing gas prices and also the potential for a shortage of gas, which could have turned into an energy blackout. To help address this, the data science team asked a group of customers who had smart meters to opt into a program that would ask them to reduce their energy, and then we would reward those users for reducing their energy when prompted.
Clever. Yeah, and that's great, and thank you for doing that work. That sounds really impactful. I bet that you had to turn it around really quickly, though.
Yes, it was very fast in that we needed a working solution in production within just 4 weeks. And what made this particularly challenging is that we were dealing with smart meter data. With this data, we had a meter reading coming in every half an hour from every customer, which is billions of rows of data, which we had to process really quickly. And because this includes customer data as well, this all had to be managed and processed in a really secure and governed way. And I'm really glad that we were using Snowflake and Snowpark when this happened.
Well, tell me more about that.
So before, we were dealing with really siloed infrastructure that our data science team had to manage. And to use Python, we were moving large amounts of data from the data lake in Snowflake to Spark clusters. And these were really difficult to scale, so it could take many months for us to move our experiments into production. Now we have a platform that's helped us to scale from delivering just 3 products per year to delivering 12 per year.
That's awesome, and that sounds very similar with what we're struggling with. I'd actually love to look at your new infrastructure if you wouldn't mind sharing it.
Absolutely. So here what you see is data coming into Snowflake, which serves as our data lake to securely store a wide range of customer attributes. And to streamline the data processing, we started to use Snowpark for Python. This allows us to do all that large-scale processing without having to move and manage that data in separate environments. And because the syntax is really similar to PySpark, it was really easy for our data scientists to pick it up. And then to streamline the path to production, we've built out an environment for discovery. Here, our data scientists could use Snowpark to do all our experimentation and then quickly move that into production.
Well, that sounds really straightforward and quite elegant, but how long did it take you to actually build it?
Well, we started with an initial proof of concept. This took just 2 weeks. Then, after that, we took an iterative approach to development with the aim of getting working tools into the hands of data scientists for really fast feedback. We were able to release our first environment, which was our discovery environment, to data scientists just 2 months after the proof of concept. The fully automated platform with all the production environments in place was made available in December last year. So in all, it took just 5 months for us to develop the entire architecture.
Wow, I mean, that's the dream, to be able to release iteratively like that. Once you complete a product, though, how are you actually distributing it and getting it into the hands of people? We also have to do something similar with our data products for our franchisee owners.
Well, to share these insights with our operations and marketing teams, our team needed a really interactive way to consume these data science machine learning-oriented products. The existing BI solution we had wasn't really suited to this task, so we started to use Streamlit in Snowflake to build interactive apps. And the best thing of all is that our team didn't have to worry about any of the infrastructure behind these apps. Because, again, any infrastructure we'd have to manage would slow down on our ability to deliver on new products. And because all the data is under the same governance within Snowflake, anyone that had access to this data automatically had access to the Streamlit apps.
Wow. That sounds really impactful. Can you tell me a little bit more about what it's like to collaborate across groups right now? One of the things that we're really struggling with is just the silos that we have internally, even between our own teams. I'm wondering if this new platform has changed at all how you collaborate.
It has. It's really changed the morale of the team, both in the way we work day to day, but also how we work with the rest of the business. The experience of being a data scientist in the old platform was really not great, and it's vastly better now. We didn't really have a great developer experience before. It was really hard even to get started on a project because we'd have to wait days to get hold of the data that we needed before we could even start work. Whereas now, we've got everything at our fingertips. And because of that speed at which we can now deliver on products, the business is always excited to work with us. And what that means is that we get more and more interesting projects to work on.
That's awesome.
And as Joseph, our data science product lead, would say, this team can build solutions fast, and the business are always excited to come to us to help solve their problems.
Wow, well, this has been a really useful conversation and a very inspirational direction for us as well. I'm wondering, would you mind if I follow up to get some tips on how to use Streamlit?
It has been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, Amanda, and I would love to follow up to share more of our experience with Streamlit.
Well, thank you. I actually didn't get lunch. I'm going to go see if the burrito bus is still here.
That sounds
great. Want to come with me? All right.
Community that shares like that. Thank you, Rebecca. And thank you for being such a trusted Snowflake customer. So, the first thing the team needs to do is figure out how to bring batch and streaming data together. Let's get into our first round of demos highlighting some really cool features. Snowpipe streaming for real-time ingestion, and dynamic tables to deliver declarative and continuous data pipelines. In this demo, we're going to meet a new character, James, who is a director of product management at Snowflake for pipelines and storage. Let's bring Dash out to kick off our demo.
All right, we got some water. How's everyone doing today? Excited? Awesome. So what I have going on is I'm ingesting some order transactions data using Kafka Producer, right? And I've set the ingestion method to Snowpipe streaming right here. What I've also done is set a Kafka topic to orders, as you can see right here. And then I've mapped the Kafka topic to a streaming orders raw, which is a table that's going to get created automatically because I've set this attribute to true, which is amazing. So I don't have to know the schema beforehand. I don't have to pre-create the table. It gets created automatically, right? So now let's look at the data itself. For that, I'm going to go over to Snowside. First, let's look at the data structure. Here are columns being ingested into the table, and now we're going to look at how many rows I've got in the table. 29,000, not too bad. We can do some analysis with the sample size, right? Now, let's look at the actual data. Here we go. And then you'll notice that the first column, called record metadata, is a semi-structured column. And now let's see how easy it is to actually extract that value using a colon notation. So the colon notation looks like this, and I'm going to run this query, and we'll see the values coming out. Here we go. As you can see, the format is the epoch format. Now I'm going to use some SQL functions like hour and to timestamp to convert that into an hour value. Okay, so that's what we're going to do right here. There we go. So now, using this, it's going to be really easy for me to join the data so that I can see values per hour for total cost and total sales. For that, I'm going to run this SQL right here. Will take just a couple seconds. Boom, there you go. Now, the last piece of the puzzle here is I need to decide whether to use streams and tasks or dynamic tables. Why? Because of incremental refreshes, which is super important for this type of analysis. And I think I just saw James at the Food Truck Festival. Let me see if he's still around. He can probably help me out because he knows all about that kind of stuff. Hey, can you check if James is still around? Oh, hey, there you are. That was fast.
Hey, Dash.
How's
It's nice to see you.
You too.
So what are you working on?
Well, so check this out. I have low latency data ingestion working really well using Snowpipe streaming, right? Correct. So now I need to combine this data with some static tables I have. And I'm trying to decide whether to use streams and tasks or dynamic tables.
That's a really good question. I'm glad that I was here, and I'm happy to help.
Me too.
So to keep things easy, there's really two considerations that you want to think about. The first consideration is about control. In this case, how much explicit control do you want over the orchestration and the logic of this pipeline?
Okay, so not much because I'm just looking at my notes. I'm more worried about enriching the streaming data in real time.
Real time. Everybody always says they want real time. And the speed of the refresh and whether that frequency is going to change is going to be the second big consideration. So for this particular use case, is your decision making going to change if the data is refreshed every 60 seconds versus every 5 minutes, 15 minutes, hour?
Well, really good question. So for what the team is working on right now, there's not much they can do within, say, minute windows. But in the future, we might create applications for our food truck drivers, which is when it might be super important.
That's really cool. That's a cool use case to keep in mind. Here's what I would say. So when choosing between streams and tasks and dynamic tables, streams and tasks are imperative. They give you a lot of that fine-grained control over how things run, and they're really good for complex pipelines that are going to run, and the frequency or the speed's not going to change over time. Dynamic tables are declarative, and they're designed to automate away a lot of the complexity of doing that incremental processing that you mentioned. And to give you an example, if you want to shift the speed of that pipeline in the future, all you need to adjust is just a simple parameter, and Snowflake takes care of the rest.
Yeah, since we're moving towards more frequent refreshes, I don't really want to be manually defining the whole orchestration. Sounds like dynamic tables is a good fit. What do you think?
I think dynamic tables would be a really good fit for this. And in the future, when you do onboard that use case and you want to go from refreshing maybe every 15 minutes to every 60 seconds, all you have to do is update the one lag parameter, and Snowflake takes care of the rest.
That's awesome. Thanks for the advice.
Absolutely.
It was great seeing you.
It's good seeing you too. And I actually just wrote a blog on this. I will send it to you so you can get buy-in on this approach.
Absolutely. I'm going to bookmark you right now.
Always nice seeing you, Dash.
Yeah, you too. All right, so we've got the ingestion going. And based on what James told me, I'm going to create a dynamic table. Now, this is as easy as writing this SQL statement right here. It's a DDL. And we already have the logic because I have the SQL statement that I'm going to copy and paste, and we'll have a dynamic table created. Copy this. Let's go ahead and run the SQL. There it is. So now I'm going to do a manual refresh so that we can review the data that we've just created using the dynamic table. So for that, I will find the SQL that I need to run. Give me just a second. Right here. And now let's look at the actual data. Boom, there it is. Awesome. Guac and roll. Tasty bites.
So, we've handled the matter of bringing batch and real-time data together using Snowpipe streaming and dynamic tables. Now the team is ready to tackle the next thing, bringing Python and SQL together to strengthen collaboration across data teams. Dash is about to take a stab at a proof of concept using Snowpark. In particular, using the new Snowpark ML APIs for feature engineering to accelerate code developed by Marie, our data scientist. In a few minutes, to get help with that, we're going to introduce a new Snowpark expert to the story, Edda, who in her role as Principal Data Cloud Architect has helped dozens of customers get the best use of Snowpark.
Okay, so I know that we can use Snowpark for feature engineering and for the features that Marie will use for training the model. I've gone ahead and written some code that I'm going to walk you through right now, and we're going to do a bake-off. Who's ready for a bake-off? So the first thing I'm going to do here is import all the libraries I need for this bake-off, including Snowpark, which you see right here. I'm going to run this cell. Shouldn't take that long. And then next, I'm going to establish a secure connection to Snowflake from my notebook. Now, here are all the feature columns that we're going to use to pre-process. I've also defined the table name, and then a couple of other constant values for the total rows we're going to process for the bake-off. Okay? Now, here's the bake-off. You guys ready? First, we're going to use, thank you. Scikit-learn's standard scaler and pandas data frame processing 2 million rows. So I've run this in the past. It takes about 30 seconds. So we'll see what happens. It's a live demo. So I have some jokes in my pocket. I'll pull them out if it takes longer. But I just want to highlight that I'm actually using pandas and also scikit-learn. If you see the highlighted code right here, and then here's the 2 million rows I'm passing in, and then here's where I'm doing fit and transform. And we're going to look at the first 10 rows. So 30 seconds, boom, there you go, on point. Now, let's see how long it's going to take Snowpark ML and Snowpark data frames not only to process 2 million rows, but 200 million rows. Who's ready? All right. Make me proud, make me proud. Look at that. Wow, look at that. How amazing is that? Someone do the math for me, the difference. It's awesome, right? Cool. Now, I need to figure out how to operationalize this code. Super important, right? And I think I know Etta. She was at the food festival. I think she might still be here. It'd be awesome if I can ask her.
Hi, Dash. What a cool event with the food trucks today.
I know. Amazing. Great to see you. So, here's the thing. I know you have to go, but I read your blog on Snowpark store procedures. How much of that content is being used in real world? Can you please share some details?
Sure. I literally do that almost every day with some of the biggest brands in the world. I've been building with Snowpark with customers and partners, and we really help them scale their pipelines and ML workflows in a more efficient way for almost a year now. At Snowflake, my team and I build many industry solutions with our customers and partners. Some of the most recent solutions we've been working on are quant research in financial services, advanced personalization in retail, and pharmaceutical supply chain resilience in life sciences.
That makes me feel much better. So here's my question. I did a proof of concept using Snowpark ML just now, and for data science team to use for development. But I need to start thinking about best practices to operationalize the code.
Yeah, of course. Stored procedures is definitely the way to go. Your Python code typically does two things. First, it can be used for data preparation operations such as grouping, sorting, or removal of duplicates, which can be done with Snowpark data frames. And then, for more advanced feature engineering, the Snowpark ML library is the way to go, as you see in your proof of concept.
Right.
Second, it can be more advanced logic, such as machine learning model inference, that can be executed as a function. ML inference is one of the examples, but it could be also more advanced business logic that you embed in your data applications.
Okay, so I'm with you. So can you share more about the two options that you just mentioned?
Sure, of course. Let's start with the data preparation operations. Many times I see either Pandas or PySpark used for these operations. Pandas is really easy to use, and it's very common, especially among data scientists, but it lacks scalability. PySpark, on the other hand, which I have worked for years in the past, can be more scalable, but Spark clusters are rather painful to configure for performance and optimal performance and cost. For both data preparation and feature engineering operations, Snowpark gives you the best of both worlds. Easy to use at any scale.
That's cool. Based on the test that I just ran, I had a good set of steps for, say, data preparation. But how should I think about running ML models that use Python packages like scikit-learn and XGBoost?
Really, really good questions. Let's dive into the custom function side of things. Using the Snowpark ML library, data scientists can quickly train their models in Snowflake. Once trained, the model can be deployed as a user-defined function, or UDF, to do model inference. The whole process from development to production is pretty seamless because Snowflake has an integrated repository of Python packages from Anaconda, which allows you to run your custom code using XGBoost or any other popular package very easily. With their integration, teams get access to vetted versions of the most popular Python packages in order to prevent software supply chain attacks from malicious packages that could attempt to corrupt or exfiltrate enterprise data over the network. This alone mitigates a lot of security review hurdles many data science teams encounter as they try to get their models into production.
Yeah, that is super important. I'll let the data science team know.
Yes, and I know you're not quite there yet, but once you start using UDFs for model inference, I recommend you to check out something else.
So much suspense. What is it?
There's an excellent quick start created by my team. And in this quick start, you will see tips and step-by-step instructions on how to get the most performance with your Python code. For example, you can scale out model inference to achieve 30 to 40% performance gain by just using vectorized UDFs.
I'll definitely like the things that make things run faster. So I'll check it out for sure. So I know you have to go, but let me, tell me if I got this right. So I need to remember to use stored procedures to schedule and operationalize my data pipelines. And I have to look into user-defined functions for writing custom code for inference. Is that right?
You got it.
Nice. Thanks, Etta. Super helpful.
Hey guys, that food truck festival is totally lit. I couldn't get enough of the donut holes, so I brought a few hundred more. Grab a box and share it with those around you. We are all about sharing here at Snowflake. And there's more. We've hidden some tickets under your chairs. If you're one of the lucky few, just take your ticket to the Manufacturing Chalet in the Snowflake Industry Pavilion at Basecamp East to claim your prize. Okay, so back to Tasty Bites and our demo. Before the break, the proof of concept for Snowpark went really well, and Dash is super excited to see the data science team try it out. So the team has found a way to bring batch and stream data together. And now there's a path to bring SQL and Python together. The only thing that would make this even better is if they could give more power to the analytics and data science teams. And I have a hunch that using ML-powered functions and Streamlit in Snowflake is going to do just that. Let's see what the team is able to do.
Hey, Felipe, is that a burrito you're eating?
Yep.
You must be so happy.
Yes, well, I'm not really happy. I really wanted to have lobster mac and cheese for
How come?
lunch.
You love burritos.
Yeah, but I wanted to have a lobster mac and cheese for lunch, and they ran out of it. But don't worry, I have a plan.
What kind of plan?
Well, we have all these food trucks, we have all this data. We can help the food truck owners forecast the future, their future sales. If they can see the future, they can buy all the ingredients they need, so they never run out of mac and cheese with lobster, and whatever else their customers want to buy. Also, with a good forecast, they will avoid buying too many ingredients, because we don't like waste either. And this is a perfect way to show off the new native forecasting functions in Snowflake.
Okay, let's do it. How do we get started?
Cool. So first, let me create a summary table with all the purchases by hour on each truck, on each location. This is my 3-table join. I can create a table. And then just to focus on the lobster mac and cheese, on track 184, this is my results. And we can see a cute visualization. Now, how do we extend this timeline into the future? We need 3 steps. 1, we can create a view with this timeline. 2, we can use the new forecasting function to create a model, and then we ask the model to give us a forecast. Let me show you. This is me creating the view. This is me just creating the view. Then I need to add zeros. Zeros are really important when we are building a model because we usually don't have those on SQL. Right. But then these rows with 0 will tell the model that the food truck is closed at that time. And then this is how I create the model. It's Snowflake ML stateful forecast. I give it the timeline, our view. I give it the column with the timestamp. And I tell it this is the target that we want to predict. And to see my forecast for the next 160 hours, I just call the model and ask 160 more periods.
You want to buy the burrito?
You can have a burrito. I brought one for you.
The black beans?
Yes, it's a veggie.
Thank you.
Of course. And here are my results.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I know. Look at this.
So does the forecast take into account that the food trucks stay closed at night?
Yes. So you can see here that our forecasting function detected automatically the seasonality. It's daily. It has the breakfast period, then everyone comes at lunch, and then the busiest period is at dinner. And you get all these beautiful zeros approximately when the food truck was closed. And as an extra bonus, we also get an upper bound and a lower bound for our predictions.
Cool. I'll take these forecasts to the food truck operators.
Not so fast. There's so much more that we can do. Like, we are using sales data to forecast sales. But we could have sold a lot more if we had not run out of it. For that, we should detect anomalies in the data. That's another new SQL function that we can talk about later. But let's go back to forecast. There's so much more data that we can use. What if people buy more lobster mac and cheese when it's rainy, or more ice cream when it's hot? If we know the weather forecast for the next week, we should be able to use it for our food sales. And then we can prepare our owners for any kind of week.
That would be pretty useful. But the locations that are planned for the food truck probably also have a big impact, right?
Correct. Location is another exogenous variable, and we can play with that. And we can play also with multiple series. So for that, I can create a new time series. And this is my timeline with the food and the location for all the food items. And then I'm extracting a view, including the location only for the lobster mac and cheese, combo fried rice, and the New York dog to do multiple series. And of course, I add all the zeros. And then I use the same function, but now I'm giving it a series call name. These are all the series we want to predict for. And because the view has extra columns, those are exogenous variables that can be used on the forecasting tool. Now, with that view created, I can call the new, we created the model. Now I can create the forecast. And for this, I created a different view. This view needs to have all the timestamps that we want to predict into the future and the exogenous variables that we want to predict for. I created that view here, and let's ask for the new forecast. Let's give it some seconds. You can eat a burrito in the meantime.
I don't think I have enough time. This is going to run so fast.
Correct. I surprised you again. So here you can see the chart. 3 different time series, combo fried rice, lobster mac and cheese, New York dog for each of the different locations.
This is awesome. I mean, I would never have thought that this would be possible. And now you can make sure the right amount of lobster rolls for the next festival.
Yes, sir. I'm happy, and I think our customers will be super happy too. We will get to experiment a lot more with these functions. But this is my last forecast for today.
Oh, wait. I just got a text message from Marie. I think she wants us to show us something.
Let's go check.
All right.
Marie.
Hey, Marie.
Yeah. Hey, Dash.
How's it going?
Great. Thanks for all the tips to make my code better and more scalable. Snowpark was really easy to use, and there's a ton of resources online. But what I really want to show you is how I'm taking that data and a model that I was able to deploy into production to help our brand managers drive growth through production.
How cool.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah, the only thing we're missing is internet.
Right. It is live demo after
It is a
all,
live
so-
demo, but hopefully that will be fixed soon. So,
So a code walkthrough.
Yeah, IT.
Vegas, we have a problem. Whew.
all right, anyone have jokes?
Yeah, I know. All meetings start 5 minutes late so that you can connect with them.
We didn't forecast this.
Yeah.
The product manager would never be on time for the meeting anyways. So.
Getting snacks. Well, my favorite joke is, why don't you ever see elephants hiding in trees?
Ooh.
Why, Marie?
Because they're really good at it.
Why can't you trust data analysts?
That's a good one. I would like to know why.
Because they're always plotting something. True.
This is an old one. A DBA walks into a bar and says what? Can I join these two tables?
Yes.
All right, now we're demonstrating the highly secure sign-in.
Yes, highly secure sign-in. Okay, back in action, back in character.
Internet.
Here we are. We have it. Okay. Great. So, you know how my team uses notebooks to build models and do analysis, right?
Yes.
Well, a typical request came in from the Guac and Roll brand manager, and he gave me a spreadsheet with his pricing for the upcoming month and asked me to forecast demand with it. So I put together this notebook. We hopped on a meeting. I showed him.
I think we're showing the last Zoom call. Somebody else must have been dialed into
Good
this.
catch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, good catch there.
Let's see if we can switch it over.
Let's see if we can switch it over.
Magic powers. Yes.
Okay,
they
here
work.
we are. This is it, the notebook. And what we have here is the recommended prices for one of the menu items that comes from our model. I imported his pricing, and then I used that model that I had deployed in Snowflake to calculate the total weekly demand lift and the total weekly profit lift, and that's forecasted to be a 6% lift, so that's pretty good. And then I plotted the demand by day of week.
Cool.
Now, of course, once I showed him that, he had a lot of what if, what about questions? What if we reduced the promotion a little bit? What if we added a second one? What if we used all the recommended prices? And I said, I can't answer that right now, but let me think about it. I think we can solve this. So I went away, and that's when I saw your note from your meeting with Rebecca about Streamlit. So I went into Snowflake, and with just a few lines of code, I put together the simple Streamlit app where you can navigate to a brand and then navigate to a menu item. So I'm going to go to the Not the Worst Hot Dogs brand, and then the Chicago dog. And here you could see the recommended price. So I thought this would be a good way brand managers could at least get the recommended prices when they want them. So I sent a message to the brand manager. We hopped on the meeting. And I want to walk you through how that meeting went because it was a really cool experience.
All right, I love a good behind-the-scenes story.
Okay, so the first thing, after showing him this, I wanted to show him how easy this was. So I could make changes to the code over here. See that balloon? I'm going to change it to a truck. And on the right side, ta-da, you can see a change. So right away we can see, right away we can see the application change and interact with it. So I said, because of how easy this is, if you have any ideas of how this application could work for you and be really useful, maybe we can iterate through it right here and make it happen. And he had an idea. It was a great idea. He said, well, what if we use this not just to view the recommended prices, but we actually used it to set our pricing? I said, okay, let's try and figure that out. First thing we had to do is make this data frame here editable. So we're going to switch it from a Streamlit data frame to a data editor. And then once I do that, we should be able to have that update, and then now we can edit this price. So I'm going to edit it to one of the recommended prices for one day here. Okay, great. So we can adjust the prices, but now we need to capture those changes. So I'm going to capture it in a data frame called set prices, and I want it to be a Snowpark data frame, so I'm just going to use the create data frame function here. All right. That's cool. So now we can change the data, we can capture the data. Next step is to be able to save the data and submit it. So we thought, how about add a button? So we added a Streamlit button that says update prices. And then when that's hit, we're going to save that data frame back to Snowflake. And we're going to do this by appending it so that we can submit it for multiple menu items.
Makes sense.
Smart. And the table will be final pricing. Okay, so now
let's go to CNBC really quick.
Works. Will the button appear? There's the button. We can hit update prices. Now that change is made, we're going to save it back.
And he put her on the court for me. He put her on the court for me. Dick, you really are the best man. And by the way, when I have questions about just about anything at all beyond the Judiciary Committee, I still call him anyway for his advice. So thank you. And Representative Danny Davis. Danny, you've been a good friend for a long time. He's always there. And to all the elected officials, member of Congress, elected officials here today, thank you. Thank you for the welcome, and welcome me to Chicago. You know, first quarter of the 20th century, the poet Carl Sandburg described Chicago as a city of big shoulders. A city of big shoulders. He was describing the big shoulders of a working class American town who were building this city. At the same time, building the middle class. I'm here in Chicago today for the first quarter of the 21st century to talk about the economic vision for this country. The economy that grows the economy from the middle out and the bottom up instead of just the top down. When that happens, everybody does well. The wealthy still do it, everybody does well. The poor have a ladder up, and the wealthy still do well. We all do well. This vision is a fundamental break from the economic theory that has failed America's middle class for decades now. It's called trickle-down economics, fundamental economics, trickle down. The idea was, it's belief that we should cut taxes for the wealthy and big corporations. And I know something about big corporations. There's more corporations in Delaware incorporated than every other state in the union combined. I want them to do well, but I'm tired of waiting for the trickle down. It doesn't come very quickly. Not much trickle down on my dad's kitchen table growing up. And it's a belief that we should shrink public investment in infrastructure and public education, shrink it. That we should let good jobs get shipped overseas, and we actually have a tax policy that encourages them to go overseas to save money. We should let big corporations amass more power while making it harder to join a union. I meant what I said when I said I'm going to be the most pro-union president in American history, and I make no apologies for it. My predecessor, if my mom were here, God bless his soul, my predecessor enacted the latest iteration of the failed theory. Tax cuts for the wealthy. It wasn't paid for, and the estimated cost of his tax cut was $2 trillion. $2 trillion. Now Republicans are at it again, pushing tax cuts for large corporations and the wealthy, and adding trillions of dollars to the deficit. Trillions. Folks, let me say it as clearly as I can. The trickle-down approach failed the middle class. It failed America. It blew up the deficit. It increased inequity, and it weakened our infrastructure. It stripped the dignity, pride, and hope out of communities, one after another, particularly through the Midwest, Western Pennsylvania, heading west. People working as hard as ever couldn't get ahead because it's harder to buy a home, pay for college education, start a business, retire with dignity. The first time in a generation, the path of the middle class seemed out of reach. And I don't think it's hyperbole. I think it's a fact. no matter whether you're Democrat, Republican, or Independent. I knew we couldn't go back to the same failed policies when I ran. So I came into office determined to change the economic direction of this country, to move from trickle-down economics to what everyone on Wall Street Journal and Financial Times began to call Bidenomics. I didn't come up with the name. I really didn't. I now claim it, but they're the ones who used it first. I got failed policies when I ran a helicopter in Washington. Why? When I asked you about Bidenomics a long time ago, you said you didn't know what it was. I said, I didn't name it Bidenomics. I didn't realize the economists in the Wall Street Journal did. But I think it's a plan that I'm happy to call Bidenomics.
Do you want me to keep this on or switch back to the Snowflake Summit? Let me know.
Our economy was reeling. Supply chains are broken. Millions of people unemployed. Hundreds of thousands of small businesses on the verge of closing after so many had already closed. Literally hundreds of thousands on the verge of closing. Today, the U.S. has the highest economic growth rate leading the world economies since the pandemic, the highest in the world. As Dick said, with his help, we created 13.4 million new jobs. More jobs in 2 years than any president has ever made in 4 and 2. And folks, it's no accident. That's Bidenomics in action. Bidenomics is about building an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down. And there are 3 fundamental changes that we decided to make with the help of the Congress. We've been able to do it. First, making smart investments in America. Second, educating and empowering American workers to grow the middle class. And third, promoting competition to lower costs to help small businesses. Here's what I mean by all this. Under trickle-down economics, it didn't matter whether you made things as long as you helped the company's bottom line. Even if that meant seeing jobs and industries go overseas for cheaper labor. Supply chains and key products moved overseas, like China and much of Asia. The entire towns and communities, from where I live all the way out there and through the Midwest, were shut down, hollowed out. I mean, literally hollowed out. All over the country, parents have to say to their, many of you, all elected officials, heard people tell you this, had to say to their children, honey, I lost my job. We can't live here anymore. We got to move. Trickle down also meant slashing public investment on things that help drive long-term growth and helped America lead the world in innovation. We used to invest 2% of our gross domestic product in research and development. By the time I came to office, that was down to 0.7%. We used to be #1 in the world in research and development. That's what we're known for. Now we rank #9 in the world. China decades ago was #8 in the world. Now it's #2 in the world, and other nations are closing in fast. We used to have the best infrastructure in the world, roads, bridges, et cetera. But then we fell to rated 13th best investment in infrastructure. 2 to 13. How can you have the best economy in the world without the best infrastructure in the world? How do you get product from one place to another?
Good question.
I was out in Pittsburgh recently, the city of bridges. Bridges collapsing all over the nation. You've seen on television, railroad bridges collapsing. Bidenomics, we're turning this around. We're supporting targeted investments. We're strengthening America's economic security, our national security, our energy security, and our climate security. I designed and we signed a bipartisan infrastructure law. It's already announced, and I heard some of the speakers before touting some of it. It's already announced 35,000 projects across the country. Think of it this way. Nearly a century ago, Franklin Roosevelt's Rural Electrification Act, rural electrification, brought electricity to millions of Americans in rural America. 70 years ago, Dwight Eisenhower launched the Interstate Highway System, the largest infrastructure project to date in history. That's what the bipartisan infrastructure law does. It will be for our kids and grandkids, only bigger. Just last week, we announced our plan to bring affordable high-speed internet to end a decade of unaffordable and inaccessible internet to every home in America, every small business in America. And to no one's surprise, to no one's surprise, it's bringing along some converts. People strenuously opposed, voting against it when we had this going on. This was going to bankrupt America. Well, there's a guy named Tuberville, senator from Alabama, who announced that he strongly opposed the legislation. Now he's hailing its passage. Here's what he said, quote, "It's great to see Alabama receive critical funds to boost ongoing broadband efforts." We're replacing every single lead pipe in this country and putting our children's health back directly. 400,000 schools, 10 million homes. We're fixing crumbling bridges, upgrading our power grid, renovating our airports and ports. And Dick, one of you talked about that, how important that is for the Great Lakes as well. Last week we opened I-95 back where I live. And you go up the East Coast. It's one of the most important links in the entire East Coast. Well, guess what? A guy driving a truck knocked down a whole bridge and the whole block, 4 lanes of the highway. I went up there. I said, we're going to get this the #1 project to get done. Within 1 week of my being there, 2 weeks of happening, tanker trucks that crashed and caused this overpass that has 150,000 vehicles travel on it every day and 14,000 trucks. It's critical to our economy. We did it with union workers. We closed all the loopholes. We used all American products, all American materials. We used federal infrastructure projects. Made in America. Made in America, not a slogan. It's actually happening. You know, when Roosevelt passed the legislation in the 30s about unions being able to be engaged, everybody thinks to just legalize unions. It said we should encourage unions. There was a little provision there that very few presidents paid attention to. It said, buy American. That meant that if a president was given money by the Congress to build, say, new deck in an aircraft carrier, whatever it was, he or she was supposed to use 100% American labor and 100% American products. It hardly happened. We get exceptions down to 30%, et cetera. I changed all that. We're all now investing in key industries of the future, making targeted investments to promote domestic production of semiconductors, batteries, electric cars, clean energy. Under the trickle-down economic theory was that public investment would discourage private investment. Give me a break. We went to see a whole lot of major corporations that said, are you more or less likely to invest if the government invests? Overwhelmingly. They had it backwards. They said, no, we're more likely to invest if the government invests. Public investment declined here at home. Industries that we invented started to move overseas, like semiconductors. I want to remind you, America invented these chips. Small computer chips the size of the tip of your finger that affect nearly everything in your life. From whether your cell phone functions, your automobiles can be built, refrigerators work, it goes on, into sophisticated weapon system. It's all in that little, without that computer chip, we got a real problem. But over time, we went from producing 40% of those world chips down to 10%. Not anymore. Biden economics means industries of the future are going to grow right here at home. At home. I mean it. Not a joke. Under Bidenomics, we've already had over $490 billion in private investment commitments. $490 billion from U.S. companies and companies around the world coming to the United States of America. Working with our global partners, Americans' investments in clean energy technology are going to reduce carbon emissions, continue to lower the cost of wind. You talked about the wind farms you're talking about. You know, it's already cheaper. Wind and solar are already significantly cheaper than coal and oil. You're not going to see anybody building a new coal-fired plant in America. Not just because I'd like to pass a law to say that. It's too expensive. It doesn't work anymore. Solar power is not just here, but around the world. And we used to be the center of building these solar panels. We're coming back and doing it again. America's going to lead again. Look, it's a win for the United States and a win for the world. That builds on my decision to rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement on the first day I came to office. The first day. And by the way, my predecessor talked a lot about increasing manufacturing. Remember Infrastructure Week? Infrastructure Week became Infrastructure Week and week and week and week and week. It never happened. We got Infrastructure Decade done right off the bat. But in reality, construction of manufacturing facilities here on U.S. soil grew only 2% on my predecessor's watch. In 4 years, 2%. On my watch, it's grown nearly 100% in 2 years. 100%. With the help of all the members of Congress who are here, and I'm not being solicitous. Look, Weirton, West Virginia, used to wear steel mill clothes in the beginning of this century, in 2001 or 2, in that range. It employed thousands, had thousands of good-paying jobs. They were lost. But today, with the help of the Inflation Reduction Act, a new plant's being built, building iron-air batteries, which are going to help store energy. And these batteries are going to help store energy, and it's being built on the same exact site, bringing back 750 good-paying jobs, bringing back a sense of pride and hope for the future for all the people of Weirton and surrounding areas. I believe every American willing to work hard should be able to say where they grew up and stay where they grew up. That's Bidenomics. You know, my dad used to have an expression, Joey, and I give my word, as we say. My dad was a well-read guy, never got to go to college, and a hard-working gentleman. We had dinner where we incidentally had conversation and incidentally ate. My dad used to say, remember, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck. And I mean this, I give my word. He'd say, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck, Joey. It's about your dignity. It's about pride. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay. Think about it. I mean, literal sense, think about that. It's about your dignity, how you're treated, and being able to make a living. You can tell your kids it's going to be okay. The second big part of Bidenomics is empowering American workers. When I took office, unemployment was over 6%. With the American Rescue Plan, we provided relief and support directly to working-class families. Our economy came roaring back. Unemployment dipped below 4% by the end of my first year in office. Now it's been below 4% for the longest stretch in 50 years of American history. And I must admit I concentrated on it, but we've seen with the help of Jesse Jackson's legacy and a lot of other people here, we've seen record low unemployment for African Americans. Record low unemployment for African Americans and Hispanic workers with disabilities. The lowest unemployment rate in 70 years for American women, and you make up half the economy and probably 2/3 of the brain. No, really, think about it. To pause for a second, when I was trying to name me a time when you thought any Democrat would get the endorsement within a week. Every single environmental group out there, the AFL-CIO, the women's groups. I mean, here's the deal. When I sat with the AFL-CIO, when I sat with the IBW, starting when I ran last time, I said, here's the deal, though. I'm going to be the most pro-American, most pro-union president in history, but you've got to employ more women, you've got to attract more African Americans, and you've got to attract more minorities. They have. They're going around. It's beginning to change. In every industry. Anyway, I go to these sites where they're training. By the way, the other thing I've told labor guys, you got to brag a little bit more about what you do. You realize to get a license to be an electrician in this town or any other, you got to essentially go to 4 years of college. You have to go through an apprenticeship that takes you 4 years to 5, depending, or you can't get a job. You get paid a little bit, but you can't get your license to be an electrician, a labor electrician, until that happens. Look, pay for low-wage workers has grown at the fastest pace in over 2 decades. Full employment means workers, especially low-wage workers, having more bargaining power to demand good pay, to secure good jobs. And this is a thing that isn't consistent with whether people think that we're moving in the right direction. Job satisfaction, based on every poll, is at a 36-year high. More people are satisfied with their jobs than any time in 36 years. And the shame of working-age Americans in the workforce, the share of them, is the highest it's been in 20 years. Remember what they were saying? Biden policy isn't working. He's just paying people not to work. People on the sidelines. Well, guess what? Every single day in 4 years before I took office, you may remember, I took a lot of criticism in my presidency. Republicans charged me we're encouraging people to stay home, not work. Well, they were wrong. The evidence is clear. Americans are back to work who've been on the sidelines, and they want to come back. And we're going to continue this progress and make sure every American has the training and education to participate in this new economy. We've increased Pell Grants, made landmark investments in historic black universities. We've invested more in registered apprenticeships and centered career technology education programs than any previous administration in American history. Because of this new economy, we don't need everyone to have a 4-year degree. It's great if you can get one. We're trying to make it easier for you to get one. But you don't need it to get a good paying job anymore. Think of this. How many of you remember going back to high school and they had shop class? And they had classes where people could learn if they were interested in working with their hands. They don't have them very much anymore, anywhere around the country. Well, my wife teaches at a community college, full-time still. She has an expression. She said, any country that outcompetes us, out-educates us, will outcompete us. We're not going to let that happen. That's why we're investing significantly in education. I'm determined to keep fighting for universal pre-K and free community college. We're also fighting to make child care more affordable, because we know one benefit is that it opens up significant opportunities for parents to be able to go back and join the workforce. We're also making it easier to empower workers by making it easier to join a union. As I said, I promise to be the most pro-union president in history, and I tell business leaders all the time, our union workers are the best in the world. It takes 4 to 5 years in that apprenticeship. It's like going to college. They'll do the right job on time. Long-term cost for business is less. You know, addressing the 40-year decline in unionization by supporting project labor agreements, collective bargaining, prevailing wage laws. That's the reason today America's support unions is higher than it's been in 60 years. 60 years. And by the way, I met with the Business Roundtable and others. They said, why am I so pro-union? I said, because it helps you. It really does. Think about it. The total cost of a major project goes down when you have the best workers in the world doing it. Not a joke. It's true. It lasts longer. You don't have to worry about whether that socket's going to work. Look, young people are organizing new companies and industries. You know, I've indicated to labor leaders they must expand their ranks. As I said, more women, more minorities. That's what they got to do. Third part of Biden economics is promoting competition. Because when companies have to compete on a level playing field, they have to work harder to attract customers and recruit and retrain workers. Some of you business people here know that well. But under the trickle-down economic theory, 3/4 of U.S. industries grew more consecrated. I'm thinking I didn't go to Mass. They were moving to diminish competition. Well, that may have been made things easier for big corporations. But for everybody else, it made it harder and more expensive. It got harder for small businesses to compete. It stifled integration. It reduced wages for workers. And it made our supply chains more vulnerable. So, folks, that's been the Republican plan so far. Good for big business, bad for everybody else. It's not even that good for big business anymore. When I came to office with a very different plan, a limited concentration of power at the expense of consumers. The cops are back in the beat enforcing antitrust laws. My administration is working to crack down on what we used to call non-compete agreements. We still call them that. These prevent 30 million Americans, from security guards to retail workers, from walking across the street to the same kind of business and getting a higher pay, getting $5 more a week or $10 more a week. Non-compete agreements? It's one thing to have non-compete agreements when you're dealing with trade secrets. It's another thing when you're doing the same thing of flipping a hamburger and you're going to get 5 cents more by walking across the street to a different place. We promoted or supported small businesses. You know, Vice President Harris has prioritized providing support and capital for small business owners, including for rural minorities and women entrepreneurs, including through a brand new program that's already helping deliver billions of dollars in growth capital to small businesses in every state. We've seen a record 10.5 million applications, 10.5 million applications, folks looking to start a small business just in the last 2 years, 10.5. Every one of those applications is an application of hope. Hope. Competition also means lowering costs for consumers. Bringing down inflation remains one of my top priorities. Today, inflation is less than half of what it was a year ago. And that inflation caused by Russia and by the war in Ukraine and by what's going on. But we knew we had to do more. There's more than one way to bring down costs. Another expression my dad used to use, for real. He'd say, Joey, he said, at the end of the month, the question is, after you pay all your bills, do you have just a little left for breathing room? Just a little less for breathing room. All your bills paid, do you have anything left? Well, inflation eats into that, obviously. But guess what? Bringing down the cost of medication goes a long way to giving you a little more. That's why, through the Inflation Reduction Act, we finally gave Medicare the power to negotiate lower prescription drug prices like the VA does now. We've been trying to get this done, Dick and I, for decades in the Senate. This time, we finally beat Big Pharma for the first time. You know, same drug made by the same American company, sold in Chicago, is more expensive than that same drug sold in Toronto, Great Britain, England, France, Germany, any city you can name, for real. Now seniors on Medicare are paying as much as who were paying $400 a month for insulin last year are now paying $35 a month. Because guess what? You know how much it costs to make that insulin? 10 TEN dollars. Package it, maybe 12 total. And the guy who invented the insulin didn't even ask for a patent because he wanted everybody to have access to it. We're just finishing the first round of negotiating drug prices. And we'll save the taxpayers this year $160 billion. That's like a tax cut. Lowers the cost of prescription drugs and it lowers the federal deficit as well. We're expanding health care coverage for more Americans, building on Barack's Affordable Care Act. You know why we're doing that? I'm proud to strengthen that act, saving average families $800 a year on their health care premiums. We're also fighting to end junk fees. Most people don't think of it that way. Well, here's what a junk fee is. They can add up to hundreds of dollars a month for a family. Like that extra fee when you say, I want my child to sit next to me when I take him to see Grandpa on the West Coast. It's not listed now. They're listing it now. Hotel resort fees. You don't realize, you're not told they're going to be, you know that ad in television? Mine is $200, his is $180. Well, guess what? Or the one that bothers me the most is overdraft fees for banks. The banks made $7.7 billion a year on overdraft fees. You overdraft a check, you get a penalty. It's one of the leading bank presidents, God love him, he's passed away, but he had a yacht. The name of the yacht was Overdraft. Swear to God. Well, guess what? There are going to be no more overdraft fees. Folks, we're doing all this, reducing the deficit at the same time. Just in my first 2 years in office, my team and I have reduced the deficit by $1.7 trillion, more than any president has. Just in 2 years. And the budget agreement I negotiated without having to give away anything of consequence reduced the deficit by another $1 trillion. You know, reversing 40 years of Republican trickle-down economics that helped few but hurt the middle class, it's going to take some time. But we're in a place where some big pieces, and we're moving in a direction where we can get some more done and people will see it. What I'm doing, and I knew I'd have to do this, all those major legislations we passed, people go, that's great, but it takes time to get it out in the field. It takes time for them to see it. And I'm not here to declare victory on the economy. I'm here to say we have a plan that's turning things around incredibly quickly. But we have more work to do. For example, does anyone here think the federal tax system is fair? Raise your hand. No matter how much money you make. We're going to make it fair by eliminating loopholes for crypto traders, hedge fund managers. Big oil made $200 billion last year and got a $30,000 tax break, $30 billion tax break. We're going to get billionaires to pay up a little bit, at least the minimum tax. You know, when we began, there were 750, before the pandemic, 750 billionaires in America. Now there are 1,000. You know how much their average tax is? They pay federal tax? 8% taxes. No billionaire should pay lower tax rate than a school teacher, a firefighter, a cop. I mean, this is... I'm not talking about the old days of 70% tax. I'm talking about a fair shot. If they just paid the top tax rate that exists now, which is 130%, we'd raise billions and billions of dollars, lowering the deficit, allowing us to pay for so much more we have to do. That's the next phase of this fight, making the tax code fair for everyone, making the wealthy, the super wealthy, and big corporations begin to pay their fair share without raising taxes at all on the middle class. I made a commitment when I got elected. No one in America making under $400,000 ever have to pay a single penny more in federal taxes as long as I'm president. And I've kept that promise. And $400,000 is a lot of money where I come from. Let me close with this. When I came to office, I had a fundamental decision to make. We're going to continue trickle-down economic as a policy that's failed time and again, that grew inequality, that saw jobs go overseas, that saw, and you've seen it out here, towns hollowed out. I ran on the promise I was going to end this, and that I began to build an economy from the middle out and the bottom up. We're not going to continue down the trickle-down path as long as I'm president. This is the moment we're finally going to make a break and move away from an economy that has existed in a fundamentally different direction. Here's a simple truth about trickle-down economics. It didn't represent the best of American capitalism, let alone America. It represented a moment where we walked away, and how many in this country, from how this country was built, how this city was built. Bidenomics is about the future. Bidenomics is just another way of saying, restore the American dream, because it worked before. It's rooted in what we've always worked best at in this country, investing in America, investing in Americans. Because when we invest in our people, we strengthen the middle class, we see the economy grow, that benefits all Americans. That's the American dream. 40 years of trickle-down limited that dream, for those, except for those at the top. Too many, for too long, have seemingly suggested that it's only available if you have a 4-year college degree. You can work at a teacher or work at a tech center. These new factories that are opening, these fabs that are opening for semiconductors, without a college degree, you're going to make $100,000 to $130,000 a year working in those fabs. $100,000 to $130,000 a year. Well, I believe that every American willing to work hard should be able to get a job no matter where they are. In the heartland, in small towns, in every part of this country, to raise their kids on a good paycheck and keep their roots where they grew up. That's Bidenomics. I think the economic philosophy is not going to restore the American dream that we have now, that philosophy, but this new one will. It's going to help, and I think it's going to help lessen the division in this country by bringing us back together. It makes it awful hard to demagogue something when it's working, although they do it all the time. I've long said, and I mean this, I was on the Tibetan Plateau with Xi Jinping. I traveled 17,000 miles with him. I've spoken with him more than any other head of state because it started when I was vice president, and President Hu was the president, and he was the vice president. We knew he was going to be successful. It was inappropriate for Barack to spend that time with him, but I spent a lot of time with him. I met alone with him, just he and I, and a simultaneous interpreter 68 times, 68 hours, 68 times, more than 68 hours. By the way, I turned in all my notes. But, it's the God's truth. He asked me, we're in the Tibetan Plateau, and he asked me, he said, can you define America for me? I said, yes, in one word, and I meant it. Possibilities. Possibilities. We're a land of possibilities. And I told him it's never been a good bet to bet against America. Never. And I can honestly say I've never been more optimistic about America's future. I swear to God. I've never been more optimistic. Just have to remember who we are. We're the United States of America. There is nothing beyond our capacity if we work together. So God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
That was President Biden giving what sounded like the opening speech of his 2024 presidential re-election campaign, talking multiple times about not continuing down the trickle-down economics plan, as you heard, laying out multiple different ideas, incredibly promoting labor unions, among some other efforts, Medicare pricing negotiation, as he works to lay out this economic message for the next, let's call it, year and a half now. Welcome to The Exchange, by the way, everybody. I'm Kelly Evans. We appreciate you standing by. The 10-year, the markets, we're keeping an eye on everything. We've actually seen things dip a little bit towards session lows, but we'll circle back to that in just a moment. First, let's get some reaction from our panel. Standing by, we have CNBC's D.C. correspondent Emily Wilkins to react to the president's speech. Bleakley Financial Group's Peter Bookvar is here on set with me. We also welcome PIMCO's head of public policy, Libby Cantrell. All right, everybody. Emily, I'll send it to you first. What was the significance you heard here?
Well, the difficult thing here for Biden, you are often told show, don't tell. But the fact of the matter is that most of Biden's big policy wins over the last couple of years, he can't show them yet. This stuff takes time to be implemented. You got to go through the permits. You got to get the construction. Most Americans, they're not aware of what Biden has done in the last couple of years. They don't know how it impacts them. And so that's really the key for this speech, is to get out there, to tell Americans what he's done, to take credit for the stronger labor market that we're seeing, and then also kind of say that he's going to continue pushing for priorities, a tax on the wealthy, getting rid of hidden fees, things that we know are pretty popular with the majority of Americans. And that's really what Biden has to do with this message, is kind of say to Americans, hey, you might not have noticed yet that the roads in your town are fixed, but you need to know that we have done the investment and that good things are coming.
And Libby, maybe there's three significant things that we can emphasize here, along with everything else that jumps out to you. But number one, we have massive, I shouldn't say massive, we have a lot of fiscal stimulus coming at a time when the Fed is trying to tighten. As he said, we've done infrastructure decade, forget infrastructure week, and we have seen a massive construction spending boom. So that has been an area of significance. Also today, of course, we've had these reports from the Wall Street Journal about a further clampdown on some of NVIDIA and the other AI chips heading for China. Didn't get that detail in this speech, although he did mention chips a couple of times.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, this is obviously a sales pitch for what he has done, to Emily's point, trying to educate voters about the intricacies of really his big three legislative achievements: the CHIPS bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, and then the infrastructure bill, which, as Emily points out, really won't start hitting the economy until kind of 2024, 2025. So he's trying to sort of preview all of those and then also put forth his vision. Now, you know, I don't think that his vision today really sounds all that different from his vision in 2020. It just maybe he has some more data to support it in terms of the low unemployment, softening inflation, which is risk because, of course, inflation has been stickier. But I think broadly, it's interesting that he is absolutely embracing, Bidenomics here. He's embracing the economic scorecard, so to speak. And if the economy looks like it does today on the election eve, that will bode well for him. However, there's a real risk, right? Because we still are a year plus in advance of the election. And if the economy does slow, which many folks think it will, especially going into the end of this year, beginning of next year, it could be a risk for him that he is so doubled down on the economic track record. But I think all of the themes that we have heard today, we will hear, very much so for the next 15 months.
Peter, what's most market moving right now? Is it what the administration ultimately does with regards to AI chips? NVIDIA has been under pressure today, obviously, although not even that much, about 0.5% lower at last check. What's the most market moving kind of significance here?
Well, the money is now beginning to be put to work. And you see construction and manufacturing facilities that are hanging in there, and the infrastructure spending that's now just beginning to show up. To Libby's point about seeing the impact in 2024, 2025, we'll also see it'll become more difficult for Jay Powell to contain inflation. The 20 years leading into COVID, core goods prices averaged zero. With a lot of this reshoring and spending on doing things here, that's not going to happen. Inflation is going to bottom out at maybe 3 to 4 instead of 1 to 2, with a lot of it because of this good spending, which means that interest rates are going to stay higher for a while and make central banks' job more difficult getting it back to 2%. Now, will take a couple of years, but that's what keeps inflation higher for longer.
Sure, higher goods prices from all of this, just the continued fiscal stimulus, you could call it, at a time when the Fed is pulling back. So I guess the question is, does the Fed end up still pushing against these developments and trying to get inflation lower and ultimately maybe, more slowing the economy than it would need to or really want to otherwise as a result?
Well, that's the big question, is what sort of tolerance does the Fed have for economic slowing, for economic slowdown while they're still dealing with inflation? What unemployment rate will get them to blink off this fight? We don't know yet. Jay doesn't know yet. We're going to have to see, but we're going to reach that. They're going to reach that fork in the road where the unemployment rate is higher and inflation is not getting back to 2%, and they're going to have to make some choices.
All right, Emily, before we let you go, what's next in terms of policy initiatives from this White House? Should we wait to see more clarity on what else they might do on the chips front, and what else is in the air right now?
Well, I think one of the things that Biden touched on that we do know that there is bipartisan support for is that elimination of hidden fees. Now, exactly how that gets done, that's not quite clear at the time. Congress obviously just got done with the debt limit, and now they're going to have to focus on getting the government funded. That will take a lot of oxygen out of the room in D.C., and that means that some of these other priorities that Biden wants to see, I mean, certainly a tax on the wealthy is probably not going to be done with Republicans controlling the House, but something maybe like hidden fees, perhaps that could go in that wider year-end spending bill. They do have some more time to get these things done, but it's really not a lot before we're going to see 2024 kick into high gear and everyone really focus on the campaign trail.
Libby, maybe the way I'll ask this then is, should we consider all of these basically a campaign type wish list of, I mean, because he obviously can do significant things like what Emily's mentioning, and look at what we've seen from the infrastructure, from the bills that have already passed. But from here on out, what are your expectations?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, with a split Congress, really any sort of hope for real, I think, economy moving legislation should be pretty dim. We could see something on, maybe crypto regulation. We could maybe see something on energy permitting. That's sort of if the stars align. But I think the threshold for anything from Congress is going to be quite high. But as Emily pointed out, there are some things he can do administratively, and you refer to these export controls, which is going to be a continued focus of this administration, and regardless of who's in the White House in 2025. I mean, we think that the direction of travel here as it relates to the U.S.-China in terms of sort of protecting our intellectual property and our innovation around semiconductors and other technologies is here to stay. So we will hear more of that. And Kelly, that has the added benefit of playing well with voters. There is high skepticism among the U.S. electorate. So it sort of achieves kind of two objectives for this administration.
Yeah, and plenty of states who are feeling, seeing massive construction projects as a result of these. That's going to last. That memory is going to last. Well, thank you all. We appreciate it, Emily and Libby. Peter, stick around. We're not done with you yet. Meanwhile, the ECB's annual monetary policy conference just finished up in Sintra, Portugal today. And with quite a finale, our own Sarah Eisen hosted the panel featuring Christine Lagarde, Jay Powell, Andrew Bailey of the Bank of England, and Bank of Japan Governor Kazuo Ueda. Sarah joins us now from Portugal with some of those highlights. And Sarah, this was fun, I have to say, and revealing.
It was fun for me too, Kelly. Not every day you get 4 of the top central bankers in the world in conversation together, which I think you got some glimpses of personality there as well. But as far as the message to investors, quite clear from the Fed, the ECB, and the Bank of England at least, and that is higher rates for longer. Fed Chair Powell making clear, as he has, but I think even more forcefully today, that inflation isn't coming down fast enough and that services sector inflation is going to take time. And here's what he said about what that means for the policy path for interest rates.
If you look at the data over the last quarter, what you see is stronger than expected growth, a tighter than expected labor market, and higher than expected inflation. So that tells us that although policy is restrictive, it may not be restrictive enough, and it has not been restrictive for long enough.
Pretty clear there on the path being more restrictive and for a longer amount of time. I asked him, so if the majority of Fed members, and with that view, think that there's more to do, why did you then pause in June? He said, well, we're just trying to slow things down and get a sense of how the policy is working, but then said that he would not rule out consecutive interest rate hikes, i.e. July and potentially September, when I asked if he was comfortable with every other meeting doing an interest rate hike. Translation, Kelly, I thought he was pretty hawkish, and there were other ways he said it as well. He said that the recession is not his base case scenario and doesn't look very likely, although we could see a downturn. He said he didn't think fiscal policy was having a big impact on inflation in the economy either. He sees it in construction, but not necessarily overall inflation.
I think the markets are catching up with that point of view. We were kind of down, then we came up a little bit. Dow went down 135, though, and often we see a little bit of a delayed reaction. I thought the comments from Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey were quite striking as well. I mean, he's been under a lot of pressure because inflation in the UK has been much higher than expected. But as you asked him, I mean, there are ramifications from what's going on with Russia and Ukraine, and that could keep prices uncomfortably high. And, is that something they should respond to policy-wise?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting when he talked about food inflation, said I talked to a lot of businesses and food producers in particular, and that they're high because of the supply shortages and the material disruptions that's been happening as a result of the war in Ukraine. So I said, but you can't do anything about that as a central banker, right? And he said, well, it's important to know that. When it comes to the double hike, which was a surprise, 50 basis points 2 weeks ago, this was his first time really talking about it because he didn't give a presser that day. So here's why he says it was justified to go bigger.
The UK economy has turned out to be much more resilient, and that's a good thing. I mean, there's many good aspects to that. But what goes with that resilience is signs of a very tight labour market, which is showing through in pay awards, but also showing through. I mean, we have an unemployment rate of 3.8%, which is historically right at the low end. So that resilience is coming through that way. But when we looked at again, to Christine's point, when we looked at the data, because we too are being driven by evidence at the moment, the cumulative data, both particularly on the labour market and on the inflation release we had, which to us showed clear signs of persistence, caused us to conclude that we had to make really quite a strong move at that point. It was justified.
They are dealing with higher inflation than even Europe. They're in the 8% range. 8.6% was the surprise inflation read that they've just had. Europe, at least a CPI headline, is 6%. U.S. CPI headline, we're down to 4%. But, of course, central bankers are looking at the core, which remains sticky, stubbornly high, and they're trying to target that. And, of course, Kelly, I asked, is that because of Brexit? Is that why yours is higher? And he downplayed that and said, no, it's the tight labor market.
No, but it was absolutely the right question. Peter, I don't know about you, but I thought the star of the show might have been Ueda.
Well, that was what was so interesting is you had 3 of the 4, to Sarah's point, reiterated that higher for longer is their theme, where Ueda was like, well, lower for longer is mine.
Right. Why is that?
It's a good question because he was talking about inflation, core inflation, or below headline inflation being below their trend, even though that core, ex food and energy, is running at 4. So I think he's reaching a point where he's going to have to make a move at some point. But as he said during the interview, 25 years of lagging monetary policy, I guess he doesn't feel like yet his hand is forced.
Right.
But also Sarah talked about the weakening yen and how they will do that. I think you can be sure if the yen breaks 145, 150, there's going to be even more extreme pressure on him to widen yield curve control and maybe get out of negative rates.
Quick last word, Sarah. I thought he was quite personable and funny.
I thought it was funny. He got the biggest laughs and applause and even roaring laughter from the crowd, which you don't often expect from central bankers. He made a joke about the 25-year policy lag. Also made a joke about going all in on paper money, which is funny if you know the Bank of Japan policy versus the digital currencies from Europe and the UK. But the bottom line is that they have been waiting so long for inflation, and he still characterizes underlying inflation as below 2%. And continuing to be so for this year, maybe sees it getting to 2% next year, doesn't have a lot of confidence in that forecast, but maybe that would cause him to rethink. That was as close as I got, the easy money policy.
It's true, and you wonder at the end of the day, is he going to have to catch up with the rest of the central bankers, or are they going to catch down to him? Like I still wonder a little bit which way this is going to go. Sarah, great stuff. Thanks for sticking around. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sarah Eisen in Portugal. Coming up, Korean barbecue chain Jen Restaurant Group hopping in its public debut. Is the IPO drought officially over? We'll look at some other names that are on deck. And as we head to break, here's a look at the markets. Dow's down 139, S&P down 0.25%. NASDAQ has lost its gains. It's only up 4. And the Russells, hey, there you go. They're up 0.2, 371 on the 10-year after that 7-year auction. We're back after this.
This is The Exchange on CNBC.
All right, y'all. Thanks for watching.